In 1989, a Finnish newspaper published a story that would terrify millions of people. It said that somewhere in Siberia, Soviet scientists had drilled a hole so deep they broke through into hell itself. That microphones lowered into the hole recorded the screams of the damned. That the drill bit had melted through solid rock into a hollow, glowing cavern. The story spread through Christian radio stations across America. It got repeated on television. To this day, people still search for the Screams from Hell recording and find it terrifying. Here's the problem. It never happened. But the real story, the one nobody made up, is arguably even stranger. Because there really is a hole. It's real. It's still there, rusting away in the Russian Arctic. And it is to this day the deepest hole ever drilled by human beings into the Earth's crust. And what scientists actually found inside it rewrote what we thought we knew about our planet. This is the true story of the Kola Superdeep Borehole. To understand why anyone would drill a 12-kilometer hole into solid granite, you have to understand the 1960s. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a race for prestige that went in every direction humans could possibly go. Up into space and down into the Earth. America had already tried and failed. In the early 1960s, the US attempted something called Project Mohole, an ambitious plan to drill through the ocean floor to reach the Mohorovicic discontinuity, the boundary between Earth's crust and mantle. It ran wildly over budget, achieved a fraction of its goal, and Congress canceled it in 1966. The Soviets saw an opening. If the Americans couldn't outdrill them, the USSR would prove Soviet science and engineering could go where no one else had gone, literally straight down. They chose a site on the Kola Peninsula in the Russian Arctic, near the town of Zapolyarny, just a few dozen kilometers from the border with Norway and Finland. The rock there was part of the Baltic Shield, some of the oldest and most stable continental crust on the planet, some of it nearly 3 billion years old. Drilling began on May 24, 1970. Nobody involved could have guessed it would still be talked about more than 50 years later. This wasn't like an oil well. Oil and gas wells go deep, but they're drilled through relatively soft sedimentary rock. The Kola team was drilling straight down through some of the hardest crystalline rock on Earth, granite and gneiss that had been sitting under enormous pressure for billions of years. Standard rotary drilling, where the entire drill string spins from the surface, didn't work at that depth. The friction and torque would have snapped the pipe. So Soviet engineers used a technique where only the drill bit itself, at the very bottom of the hole, was spun by a turbine powered by pumped drilling mud. The kilometers of pipe above it stayed still. It worked, but painfully slowly. Drilling into rock this deep and this old meant every meter forward was a fight against pressure, heat, and rock that behaved in ways engineers didn't expect. By 1979, the project had broken the previous world depth record, set by the Bertha Rogers oil well in Oklahoma at just over 9.5 kilometers. The Soviets kept going. By 1983, they reached about 12 kilometers down. Then drilling stopped for almost exactly a year. Not because of any disaster, but for a planned break to change out equipment and study samples. When drilling resumed, a mistake caused a section of drill string to snap off and get lost in the hole. Rather than trying to fish it out from over 7 kilometers down, engineers did what oil drillers still do today. They sealed off that branch and started drilling a new one from a shallower point, deviating around the obstruction. This is actually why, if you look at a map of the borehole today, it isn't one single hole. It's a cluster of several branches, all drilled from the same surface location, reaching different depths. The deepest branch, SG3, reached its final depth in 1989, 12,262 meters. That's over 12 kilometers straight down. For context, Mount Everest is about 8.8 kilometers tall. If you took Everest and flipped it upside down, stacking it into the Earth, the Kola hole would still swallow it and have over 3 kilometers to spare. And yet, here's the detail that surprises almost everyone. The hole itself is barely wider than a dinner plate, about 23 centimeters across, 12 kilometers down, and less than 9 inches wide.
Here's where the real story becomes genuinely mind-bending. No demons required. Geologists had modeled the crust in that region based on seismic data, sound waves bounced off underground rock layers, the same technique used to search for oil. Based on those models, scientists expected to hit a transition around 4.7 kilometers down, where granite rock was believed to give way to basalt. They never found it. Instead of a clean transition to basalt, the drill kept pulling up fractured, metamorphosed granite all the way down, just altered by billions of years of heat and pressure. The seismic boundary scientists had been detecting for decades turned out to not be a change in rock type at all. It was a change in the physical properties of the same rock, altered by deep pressure and fluid content. This meant that a technique used across the entire planet and across the entire oil and gas industry to infer what's underground was based on a flawed assumption. That's the kind of discovery that quietly rewrites textbooks. At depths where the pressure is so extreme that no cracks or pores should logically exist, the borehole found mineral-rich water, seemingly forced out of the crystal structure of the rock itself under high pressure and temperature, and trapped there by an impermeable layer above it. Water that geologists assumed simply couldn't exist at those depths, sealed in rock that was supposed to be solid all the way through. At a depth of roughly 6.7 kilometers, in rock estimated to be about 2 billion years old, researchers found microscopic fossils, the remains of ancient single-celled marine organisms, plankton-like microfossils preserved in the rock. Life, fossilized, kilometers beneath the surface, in rock older than most complex life on Earth.
Scientists expected temperatures at 12 kilometers down to be around 100 degrees Celsius. Instead, they measured roughly 180 degrees Celsius, nearly double the prediction. This was actually the reason drilling eventually had to stop. At that temperature, the rock became too plastic, too soft and flowing for the drill bit to make further progress. It behaved more like hot plastic than solid stone. Continuing deeper became physically impossible with the technology of the time. This is the detail worth sitting with. The hole didn't stop because Soviet engineers gave up or ran out of money or hit something supernatural. It stopped because they ran into the actual physical limits of drilling technology against the heat of the Earth itself. 12 kilometers down is barely a scratch on the crust, and the crust already fought back that hard.
So where did the screaming come from? In 1989, as the Kola project was making real headlines for its real scientific findings, a Finnish newspaper called Aamanasatia ran a story, reportedly satirical or at least unverified, claiming Soviet scientists had drilled into a cavity, lowered a heat-resistant microphone in, and recorded the sounds of tormented souls. The story was picked up and repeated with less and less skepticism as it spread. By 1990, it had reached the United States, where a religious broadcasting network aired it as a real news segment, complete with an actual audio recording claimed to be the sounds of hell. Transworld Radio, a Christian broadcaster, aired the claim, and it exploded from there, reprinted in tabloids, forwarded through churches, and eventually just absorbed into internet folklore. The audio clip itself has since been traced by researchers to a much more mundane origin. It closely matches a sound effect from the 1972 horror film Barren Blood, used decades later completely out of context to prove the hoax. There was no cavity, no microphone lowered into a hollow chamber, no demonic recording. Soviet scientific records from the actual Kola project, logs, published papers, interviews with geologists who worked on site for years, contain absolutely nothing resembling this story.
Geologist Zoya Bajenova, who spent years overseeing sample analysis on the real project, has flatly denied any of it ever occurred. What's almost funny about this is that the real story didn't need the exaggeration. A hole 12 kilometers deep,
Hot enough to soften rock like plastic, containing 2 billion-year-old fossils and water trapped inside solid stone. That's already one of the strangest things humans have ever done to the planet. The hell story is a layer of fiction stacked on top of something that was already extraordinary.
Drilling stopped in 1992. The heat problem, then the collapse of the Soviet Union, which cut off funding almost entirely. A skeleton crew kept it running through the 90s, but by 2005, the money was gone. The site was abandoned, windows broken, equipment left to rust in the Arctic cold. In 2008, it was officially closed and sold for scrap. Today, the deepest artificial point on Earth is sealed under a welded metal cap inside a crumbling building with no security and no monument. More people have walked on the moon than have ever seen the bottom of this hole, because even the people who drilled it never did. All they had was 12 kilometers of cable and some core samples. We've sent probes past the edge of the solar system. We've landed rovers on Mars. But the deepest hole we've ever drilled into our own planet reaches just 0.2% of the way to Earth's center. No demons, no screams, just a
2 billion-year-old rock record and a rusted cap in the Arctic, sealing the deepest hole humans have ever made.